Please note before watching, this video is intended for observation and analysis only. It is not recommended to casually imitate these actions without understanding skin condition and proper hygiene. At first glance, this may look like a common clogged pore, but handling it incorrectly can lead to prolonged redness and irritation. In this video, we will go step by step through how the skin reached this condition. From there, we will carefully observe the visible characteristics of the clogged pores. What matters most is not only whether something comes out, but how the skin reacts. Even if a clog looks small on the surface, it may have been building up internally for a long time. So rather than watching this only for stimulation, let's follow the changes in the skin itself. One major factor behind this kind of condition is increased sebum production. Sebum alone does not immediately cause a blockage, but when dead skin cells accumulate, the pore opening becomes easier to block. As the pore opening narrows, oil and dead skin begin to collect and gradually harden inside. If this continues over time, the blockage can become deeper than it appears from the surface. Areas like the nose and chin are especially prone to visible congestion because they produce more oil. Even with regular cleansing, clogging can still occur when sebum output itself is high. In other words, frequent clogging does not automatically mean the skin is dirty. On the other hand, over-cleansing and excessive rubbing can create another kind of problem. When the skin is washed too aggressively, the skin barrier may become weakened and more sensitive to irritation. As a result, even mild friction can start to trigger redness more easily. Another common factor is the habit of touching the face with the hands. The more repeated contact there is, the more irritation and contamination are brought to the same area. In addition, areas that have been forcefully squeezed in the past tend to become more sensitive. Skin around a pore that has already been stressed once often turns red more easily during the next attempt. When clogs are densely packed within the same small area, as in this footage, long-term buildup is strongly suggested. Rather than appearing suddenly, this likely developed little by little over time. The darker plugs seen on the surface may have changed color due to oxidation. Even plugs that look pale or white may contain sticky sebum and compacted keratin inside. So from appearance alone, it is difficult to fully judge how deep or firm a clog really is. That is why the redness around it and the shape of the pore should also be observed beforehand. Instead of assuming there is only one cause, it is important to consider oil, dead skin, friction, and past irritation together. That is the broader background behind how this condition likely developed. From here, we will look more closely at the visible condition of the pores themselves. The first thing that stands out is that each pore seems to be clogged in a slightly different way. Some have a clearly darkened surface, while others look more closed and swollen with a pale top. This difference suggests that the stage of congestion is not the same across the area. The larger plug visible here appears to have already moved closer to the pore opening. Meanwhile, the smaller clustered ones may look superficial, but can actually be more persistent. The skin surface in this area also appears quite shiny, suggesting high oil production. On oily skin, removing one clog often still leaves several similar ones nearby. That is why focusing on only one pore can make it easy to miss the bigger picture. What matters here is not the size of the pore itself, but how the surrounding skin is reacting. If there is slight redness around it, some irritation may already be present. When pressure is repeated at this stage, the surrounding tissue may take damage before the clog even moves. Even if the visible change seems small, the skin responds very sensitively to friction and pressure. That is why analysis should include not only the plug, but also the color and texture around it. This pore has a relatively clear dark outline. A clearly defined outline may indicate that the surface has been oxidized for a longer time. However, a darker appearance does not always mean the clog is deeper. On the other hand, a pale and less noticeable clog may still be firmly packed underneath. So here, reading the condition of the pore opening matters more than color alone. When the opening is more open, the contents tend to move more easily. When the opening is tighter, the clog usually resists pressure much more. In this footage, both easier and more stubborn types seem to be mixed together. That mixture itself is one reason these cases cannot be judged in a uniform way. Another point becoming clear here is the difference in texture from one clog to another. Some appear softer and easier to press out, while others look thicker and more resistant. When the contents are firmer, the skin may redden before the clog shows much movement. For that reason, the less responsive a clog appears, the easier it is to overdo the pressure. Looking at the surface texture here, there also seems to be some unevenness and dryness-related stress. It is not unusual for skin to be oily and surface dry at the same time. In skin like this, it may actually be more vulnerable to irritation than it first appears. In other words, the amount of congestion does not always reflect the strength of the skin. From here, let's look more specifically at the individual changes. This particular clog has a surface bulge that is relatively easy to see. A visible bulge like this can suggest that the contents have already moved closer to the opening. However, if the exit is not well positioned, it still may not move smoothly. The redness here is not severe yet, but it would also be inaccurate to call the skin fully calm. At the smiled stage, it is often easy to miss when the skin is already starting to be overloaded. So one important point in analysis is that the absence of major inflammation does not automatically mean low risk. In this footage, the pattern seems to be more about chronic congestion than obvious inflammation. Chronic congestion may look less dramatic, but it is often more repetitive. That is why it is important not to judge the whole situation from one moment alone. When looking at how the plugs are arranged, they seem to follow the flow of the pores across the area. That kind of pattern suggests broader oil-related conditions rather than one isolated issue. In other words, it is not just one bad pore, but a surrounding environment that favors repeated clogging. So, focusing only on the most visible plug is not enough for a true understanding of the problem. Another point worth noting is the uneven way the skin surface reflects light. It looks less like balanced hydration and more like localized oil buildup, creating shine. When the surface looks like this, the nature of each clog can vary more from pore to pore. Some of the visible plugs may be dry and firm, while others appear softer and more oily. The firmer the blockage, the more important it becomes to assess the exit conditions before anything else. Even before considering any extraction, this shows how important proper observation really is. Overall, at this stage, the skin appears oil dominant and prone to repeated clogging. At the same time, the surrounding skin does not look especially strong against irritation. That combination calls for more careful observation than the appearance alone might suggest. Visible plugs naturally draw attention, but the surrounding skin environment is often what determines the outcome. It is important to keep checking whether the pore opening is suitable and whether redness is increasing. The multiple clogs visible here are each giving slightly different signals. Raised ones may appear more mobile, while flatter ones may be more likely to remain. Once you begin to notice those differences, the footage starts to look very different. You stop watching only for removal and start asking why each pore behaves differently. that shift in perspective is what turns this kind of footage into real analysis content. By now, it seems unlikely that this is just a temporary surface issue. It is more likely a condition created by accumulated sebum, stagnant keratin, and repeated irritation over time. That is exactly why understanding the background matters more than the visual impact alone. In the next section, we will compare the pores more directly and in greater detail. We will look carefully at which clogs appear more movable and which seem more likely to remain. At the same time, we will continue paying attention to redness and texture changes around them. If you focus only on whether something comes out, it becomes easy to overlook the skin burden, which is the most important part. In analysis, the contents and the skin response around them should always be viewed together. That concludes the foundation of the first half. We now have a clearer view of both the causes and the overall pattern. From here, we will follow the visible changes more closely and in greater detail. The first thing worth noting is that the opening of this pore appears relatively clear. When a pore opening is easier to see, the contents may already be moving closer toward the surface. However, being visible does not always mean it will move easily. If the material inside has become thicker, the resistance may be stronger than it looks. In this moment, we can also notice a difference between the center of the pore and the surrounding skin. When only the center stands out, it may suggest a more localized clog. But when redness spreads into the surrounding area, the burden on nearby tissue also has to be considered. In this footage, the redness is still limited, but it is not a stage to ignore. The earlier these subtle reactions are noticed, the more the overall skin burden can be reduced. The clog visible here also shows a slight raised surface. That raised shape may suggest that the contents are already pressing toward the exit. Still, even a raised clog can stop partway if the opening is too narrow. For that reason, it is too early to assume that it will be easy to clear just by looking at it. The next thing to compare is how this pore differs from the others nearby. Even if one clog stands out more, similar patterns in the surrounding pores suggest a broader area-wide issue. When congestion appears in this kind of repeated pattern, environmental factors are likely playing a major role. In other words, the balance between sebum and dead skin may have been unstable for a long time. If we look at the surface shine here, some areas reflect light more strongly than others. That uneven reflection may suggest excess oil and an irregular skin surface. When the surface is this uneven, conditions can vary significantly from pore to pore. That is why using a single fixed way of judging every clog can easily lead to mistakes. This pore, for example, has a dark border that looks somewhat blurred. When the border is less defined, there may be more than simple surface oxidation involved. It can mean that several components are layered together inside the clog. A clog like this may not come out in a clean, uniform way, even if it starts moving. Sometimes only the front portion comes out first, while material deeper inside remains. That is why success should not be judged only by how much becomes visible. Even if the appearance changes, the burden may still be increasing if the surrounding redness is becoming stronger. So in analysis, both the result and the cost to the skin need to be considered at the same time. In the next area, we can see a series of smaller clogs. Smaller clogs often look less serious, but when they appear in numbers, the total skin burden becomes harder to ignore. Even if each one is small, dense clustering within the same area suggests a more chronic pattern. That crowded distribution points less to isolated pores and more to an overall tendency across the skin. Another important detail here is that the surface texture looks slightly rough. When skin texture is disturbed, it can react more easily to friction and pressure. So even when a clog looks shallow, this kind of skin still calls for caution. The overall impression here is that limiting additional burden matters just as much as clearing the clog itself. If attention stays only on the plug, it is easy to become focused on size and quantity alone. But in reality, how much the surrounding skin can tolerate is a much more important factor. Here again, it helps to compare a larger clog with a smaller one. Larger clogs may show movement more clearly, but pressure may also become more concentrated on the skin. Smaller clogs may seem less eventful, yet they often invite repeated stress on the same area. Each type has its own difficulty, so it cannot simply be said that bigger always means harder. What this comparison really shows is that poor response is never completely uniform. Even in the same area, the appearance changes depending on both the clog itself and the surrounding skin condition. If slight redness remains visible here, it may be a small sign that stress is already accumulating. Even without dramatic inflammation, these small changes should not be overlooked. From an analytical point of view, both the obvious clog and the less obvious skin reaction need attention. If only dramatic visual change is emphasized, the realistic burden on the skin is easy to underestimate. At this stage, the area appears to have several conditions that favor repeated clogging. Higher oil production, uneven openings, and mild accumulated irritation all seem to overlap here. That is why the full sequence matters more than any single isolated moment. From here, let's move into the main takeaways and points of caution. The first important point is that trying to remove every visible clog by force is risky. Skin condition changes from day to day, and the amount of stimulation it can tolerate also changes. Whenever redness is already present or the surface looks irritated, extra caution is necessary. The more visible a clog is, the more tempting it becomes to focus on it. But something being noticeable does not automatically mean it should be disturbed right away. What matters most is giving priority to the condition of the skin rather than the presence of the clog itself. Another major point is that poor hygiene creates more risk than it may seem. If anything touching the skin is not clean, unnecessary trouble can develop on top of irritation. Even when nothing looks severely wrong on the surface, the skin can still be highly sensitive afterward. That is why simply reducing unnecessary contact can be an important form of care. Another thing to keep in mind is that one visible change does not always mean the process is complete. Even if the area looks somewhat clearer, some material may still remain deeper inside. On the other hand, a little remaining congestion may still be preferable if the skin itself stays calm. In other words, completely clearing everything is not always the best outcome. A more important goal is to avoid excessive stimulation while keeping the skin burden under control. What this footage teaches is not mainly about the size of the clog, but about how to read the skin's response. Sometimes the key point is not which pore looks the largest, but which area is becoming redder. In daily care, it is especially important not to rub too hard and not to touch too often. Over-cleansing and friction can destabilize the skin, even when the intention is to reduce oil. The oilier the skin is, the more important it becomes to focus on balance rather than stronger stimulation. Another common issue is becoming so focused on one visible area that it gets touched repeatedly. Areas that are touched again and again are more likely to hold on to redness even from smaller forms of irritation. That is why it is important to stay calm, even when a clog is visually distracting. If the skin already feels red, stinging or rough, forcing more change is not a good idea. In that kind of condition, the stability of the overall skin should be prioritized over the visible plug. If the goal is to learn from footage like this, the most valuable skill is not force, but judgment. It is important to learn which pores are more ready to move and where the burden begins to outweigh the benefit. Before closing, let's organize the key points from the entire sequence once more. First, this condition appears to be rooted in accumulated sebum and dead skin. Second, even when clogs look similar, the conditions vary significantly from pore to pore. Third, it is important to look not only at the clog, but also at the surrounding redness and texture. Fourth, the results should always be evaluated together with the cost paid by the skin. And finally, hygiene and stimulation control remain essential at every stage. Once this overall flow becomes clear, the same footage begins to look very different. It becomes less about watching a dramatic plug and more about learning how to read skin response. That shift also helps create some distance from an overly sensational way of viewing this kind of content. The greatest value here comes from expanding attention away from the clog alone and toward the entire skin environment. Even when a plug stands out, the first step should still be to check the surrounding area carefully. Redness, shine, and uneven texture are all meaningful pieces of information. It is important not to be pulled only by what is easiest to see, but also to notice the more subtle reactions. That is what leads to a deeper understanding while also respecting the condition of the skin. I hope this analysis helps build a more careful way of looking at clogged pores. Rather than focusing only on dramatic visible change, try paying more attention to smaller reactions in the skin. Skin does not react the same way every time, and its condition can shift greatly from one moment to another. That is why it is important not to simplify everything based on a single scene. Thank you for watching until the end. This time, we followed the causes, condition, reactions, and key precautions step by step. In future videos as well, let's keep looking beyond visible change and continue learning how to read the skin more carefully.